Tarping is the most important part to have consistent and successful endgames. If you want to have a solid endgame strategy and do well consistently, you have to learn how to tarp or have someone in your trio that knows how to tarp. More often than not, you need at least 2 people in a trio that know how to tarp in order to succeed. In this video, we're going to talk through exactly how to tarp and some of the little pieces that will help you improve. Let's start with the basics and we'll progress towards more advanced techniques and how to improve and tarp at a high level. First and foremost, you need to understand the building grid. This is going to help you understand how you want to place your pieces, where you want to move your vision in order to place those pieces properly, and then also how you're going to complete the entire cycle of building a tarp. You want your tarping to be one fluid motion. That way, each piece then flows into the next, and then you can continue to build and edit flawlessly without issues because it is all coming together into one perfect piece. I like to edit in a circle, finish up top, come down, place both floors, and then sweep across with the walls. This edit into the building gives me one fluid motion that I can consistently do while tarping. You want to understand your tarping and building grid perfectly so that you're not placing extra pieces. These are going to be wasted materials that don't help your tarp and could be the difference between a top 5 placement or a top 10 placement. Now let's talk about the different kinds of tarps that you're going to need to practice in creative and also in game. This is the full box tarp. This can be super useful when you need to rotate forward and there's players in front of you. It protects all sides and you continue to move straight forward. Now, the front wall can be wasteful at times if there's no players in front of you, and this is the next tarp. This is the open tunnel, and this is really what you want to use during the moving zones. Leave the front open, allow yourself to continue to move forward, save the materials, and let your teammates close off your backside. You should be able to tarp at full speeds, but most of the time when you're on the front side of moving zone, you're going to move slowly as zone moves and claim the pieces ahead of you. We see Seti do that here, and he is one of the best tarpers. I highly recommend checking him out and watching his tarping if you want to learn to be a better tarper, because he's so consistent with his builds and his positioning of his tarps. Back to tarping. We also have open-sided tarps, which are going to help you save materials when you can get either the left or right side of zone. I highly recommend trying to grab these positions and use these tarps in order to save materials. Next is the ramp tarp. This is going to be a cheaper tarp, so you're going to give up some safety while saving some materials. You'll be able to get longer distances but not be as safe, especially because you can't double layer the floor and will easily get shot out while doing this. Now, ramp tarping should be able to go both ways, and when you're building a ramp tarp, you need to understand whether or not you're going to look down or look up while trying to build it. While looking down, you don't really have much vision and can quickly get lost in just tarping. While looking up, it's a little bit harder to effectively place the build, but gives you more vision of the area and allows you better information to move and successfully tarp forward. To place the ramp behind you, you need to place the wall in front of you first. That will give you the right angle to then build the ramp tarp. You can see from these examples that I'm showing you, it goes floor, wall, ramp. You need the floor first, obviously, to walk on, then the wall in order to catch the ramp, and you just continue that pattern forward. Last but certainly not least is the bizzle tarp. This allows you to go diagonally, and it's also slightly easier, in my opinion, to do this tarp than the full box tarp. So use this when you need to go sideways instead of straight in one direction, but ultimately during endgames you're going to have to know how to use multiple different variations of tarps in order to effectively navigate through the spaces. We've covered the different kinds of tarps. Now it's time to talk about who are the best tarpers. That way you guys can get an idea of who to watch and learn from when you're trying to better understand how to tarp. I'll give you guys 2 examples, one from EU, one from NA East, of teams that you can watch and understand how to tarp. Then I'll give you a couple more that you can go ahead, do your own research, and identify their tarping style and why it works for them. Now, first we're going to go for the EU trio. That's going to be Andretta, Resguard, and Mr. Savage. Andretta is the lead tarper and the most effective tarper on the region, in my opinion. Now, there's a couple others that stand out to me. Stursix, Tayson, Seti are also amazing tarpers on EU, but let's take a look and see what makes Andretta so effective. There's 4 main pieces within Andretta's tarp that make him so good at his tarping. The first is going to be his front side positioning. This is something that as a trio you should be focusing on, and it makes tarping that much easier because nothing is going to be in your way if you're on the front side of the zone unless there's old builds or natural buildings. His second is his preciseness, his precision in the builds. Every piece has a purpose. He's not flailing around and throwing random builds, wasting a mat or 2 per box. He's even double layering with a cone and floor with no issues, perfectly navigating through these builds and the tarps. Additionally, Andretta is acutely aware of other teams and the terrain around him. He's making sure he understands what path they need to take, where other teams are, and can even cut them off if he wants to. Then, last but not least, is he's building a safe path for his teammates. Not only is he getting himself through this zone, but he's also allowing his teammates to follow that path, and that is your job as a tarper. It doesn't matter if you can get through, if your teammates cannot, and that is what Andretta is doing in here. Additionally, I want to nail this point home. You need someone else to be able to tarp on your trio rather than just one person. When Andretta gets hit, he cannot continue to tarp. Someone else has to take over. That's Mr. Savage. He takes over the builds and puts himself and his trio in a good position still. Andretta needed to stop and heal. Savage took over, and you're going to see this as a constant theme in the best trios. Our NA East trio we're going to watch is Commandment, Scented, and Edgy. The other tarpers that I would recommend checking out in this region are going to be Booga, Reverse 2K, and Creo. There's tons more, but those guys stand out to me, and you can go ahead, watch their VODs, or check out some of their YouTube videos and see exactly what they're doing. What we can see here from Commandment is he's staying front side, he's securing pieces in a tarp that his teammate can follow, and continuing to push those pieces in front of other opponents to make sure he's securing a safe tarp for him and his teammate. Now, the reason that I decided to choose this trio is the dynamic between Scented and Commandment. The two wind up switching back and forth between tarping. Scented normally leads up till 5th, and Commandment will go ahead and lead in the moving zones. But at times, Scented takes over, and this dynamic between the two of Scented and Commandment really make them a great trio to watch to learn how to tarp because they're doing it as a team. Scented is staying on the front side, and now Commandment's taking a back seat when he's normally the lead tarper. The versatility of this trio gives them the ability to be super consistent even when one player goes down. I highly recommend learning how to tarp even if you're not the main tarper in your trio for this exact reason. Your main tarper's not always going to be able to lead, and you can't fall behind in zone or give up a good position just because that person needs to heal or they've gone down. Now, go ahead, check these guys out, watch how they go ahead and tarp here. They use peppers, they're going to stay ahead of zone, and we even see Commandment get a nice box play here and a nice little elim. These guys we know like to play the low ground layer, so they're going to go ahead and claim this low ground area, and this is how they are so effective when closing out games on low. They take all of this space, clear out the low ground, and then own the entirety of this position after they've gotten the front side and just get there before anyone else does. Nobody has an option to play low when this team has already claimed all that space and now is going to force you out of it. They do a really good job of this consistently, and this is one of the huge reasons why they're so good. They just bully anyone off the low ground, and as we can see, Commandment, Scented, going back and forth with who leads the tarp, it's a huge piece to their success. We've knocked out the different kinds of tarps. We've talked about who you should watch to learn how to tarp. Now we're going to talk about how you should literally be practicing to get better. The first thing you should do is go into an open creative map. Maybe it's a 1v1 build map by yourself, and just go ahead and practice the different kinds of tarps. Check out the beginning of the video if you don't know what those are. Then You can move into scrim games and also some different kinds of 30, 50-man zone wars to practice. Those are actually pretty good at simulating how an endgame lobby is going to be. And if you play the solo 32-mans, you could practice tarping by yourself in a somewhat stacked endgame scenario. Now, the most effective way to practice how to tarp is going to be those endgame scrims, tournaments, or just regular stacked games. This is going to be where you actually gain experience learning how to change layers, effectively have foresight to see where the terrain is going, and block off other trios, stay front side of zone. It's a little more difficult to simulate all of these things outside of an actual game. So what you want to do is make sure you're getting the actual mechanics of tarping down, and then put yourself in in-game scenarios as much as possible. This is not an easy skill, so you have to take time to learn how to do it and practice, because it's not going to happen unless you're practicing. Well, that's all I got for you guys. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something, a little bit how to tarp, learned who to watch to go understand how to better tarp. And what we want to do is take this in game and make sure you guys are getting better placements. So if you feel like you learned something, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Somebody's Gun, and I'll see you guys next time.